Hello everyone and welcome back to our new video. So today we are going to discuss about currency conversion in SAP Analytics Cloud. So just to explain, if someone is very new to currency conversion, so currency conversion in SAP Analytics Cloud or in any tool is a built-in, or maybe you can in different tools it can be different, but in SAP Analytics Cloud it's a built-in model feature that allow you to automatically convert a monetary value from a transaction currency into target or reporting currency using an exchange rate table. Okay, so why this currency conversion is needed? In very simple terms, many MNC companies do operations in multiple currencies. Like if you are owning a company of or your organization in which you are working on, so there are different business units in different parts of the world, and each different units perform specific operations and they receive money in different currencies. But at the end of the day, as a parent company, you want to know that um, the overview of the performance or P&L or your balance sheet, everything in a particular currency. Then based on the transaction that has happened on a particular date, you need to translate all the different currencies into your target currency in which you want to produce the similar financial reports. So this is one aspect. Another aspect, like it is also like if operations are happening in different parts of the world, when you will be doing the planning also, you will be using the local currency. Okay, so that um, just to estimate, because currency wise the exchange rate may differ, right? So whenever we do any planning, we do it most of the time in a local currency because operation is happening in that currency. So I am able to plan, or I am able to forecast or do the budget based on the operation and operational currency. So at the end of the day, maybe currency translation sometimes go up and down, so it may cause some difference. So that will be a very important aspect from reporting. Like I did my planning in a particular currency, but I need to see what is the variance of my planning. But I also want to see that because of the exchange rate change, like from the time I did the planning till now, what is the difference? This exchange rate changes is impacting my business. So these are some important aspects why currency translation or currency conversion is very important. Coming to some very common benefits in very simple terms, like it will help you with the centralized FX logic. Like you will have one centralized table where you will maintaining the rates, because when you will designing analytical and planning solution, there will be multiple teams, multiple departments generating their report, right? So if you will not have a centralized logic, then people get exchange rate from multiple places and they use multiple or different rates, which will make your throughout as an organizational level your enterprise report a bit inconsistent. So that is why the approach is centralized FX logic. That means you will have a central table for exchange rate in SAP Analytics Cloud. And once the exchange rate table, so one exchange rate, so there will be one exchange rate table that drives all conversion across the stories and model to keep all the stories and model consistent. So that's the objective. Then you will have dynamic reporting functionality. So end user can select the target currency in the story. So you can create a parameter and end user can select that. So let's suppose my transaction is happening in 10 different currencies, but I want to see the overall report in a particular currency, but that is not fixed. Maybe the different user, it's the same report but different user will want to generate in different currencies, so they will have the flexibility to select their respective target currency and use the same report, so duplicacy won't be there. Like you're not creating multiple reports for multiple currencies, one report with a parameter. And then it is also version aware. So as I said, in case of planning, when we will be doing a planning, we will be using a currency in which the certain business operation will work. So that is why if my specific business operation is happening in AED, I'll refrain from doing the planning in USD, right? Or I'll refrain from planning in euro or some other currency. So because my operation is going to happen in a particular currency, so I'll do my planning in that currency. Then after the planning is done, budgeting is done, I'll get my actuals, and based on the actual I can see like where I am. So comparing AED to AED between actual and budget, it give me one variance, like how accurate my planning was. But at the same time, because maybe my parent company is in US, so that means I want my overall perspective or overall reporting in USD. So then there will be another thing that I need to compare the variance in USD. So when I need to compare this variance between actual and budget in USD, there are two things. Like you can use one rate to translate both actual and budget data, but you can also budget, or you can also plan your exchange rates. Like I am planning in future the exchange rate will be this one, so that you can also get a variance that is coming because of the exchange rate changes. So this gives a very important business insight, like because the exchange rate is going up and down, how it is impacting my business or how it is impacting my planning. So that is why version aware is also one of the very important aspect, that we can create our, or we can plan our exchange rate as well, not only the data but also the exchange rates. And then once we get the actuals, we will compare like how is the variance working with respect to the exchange rate changes. And then you have the benefit, another benefit of accurate financial analysis, because it aligns with the posting date or other reference date for correct reporting. So in whatever currency the translation is happening, it is that posting is being done on a particular date, and that date we can use as a reference to do this currency translation. So it gives a more accurate result for the financial and other reports. So that is this point. And then we have multi-entity support. So multi-entity support means you have a parent company or main company, and then you have the subsidiaries, okay, other company codes you can say. So each company code is doing business in a specific currency. So we also call it term as like amount in company code currency many of the times in SAP S4 HANA or RISE, it is very common term. So we do the transactions in local currency, because that same subsidiary is also an kind of an MNC. Like you have a company and then you have subsidiary. Let's suppose subsidiary 1, subsidiary 2, subsidiary 3. Instead of subsidiary, we can call it company code 1, company code 2, and company code 3. Now all three company codes are dealing in multiple currencies. Like company code 1 is also doing business in 10 currencies, company code 2 is also doing business in 10 currencies, and 3 is also doing in 10 currencies. But because company code 1 is located in one region, its headquarter or something you can say, and company code 2 is situated in a particular location, so maybe based on the company code they have their company code specific currency. So if company code 1 is situated in UAE, it will say I want my report in AED, so that company code 1 have a company code currency as AED. Then again, another entity is there. It is in, let's suppose in China, or it is in Europe. So it will have respective currency as their company code currency. And then at the end of the day, you will have your transactions happening in local currency, and then you are converting it to company code currency, so that you will know that from each company code what is the performance is by company for a specific company. So that is how multi-entity support is one of the benefit for currency translation. Now coming to the prerequisite or how we do it in the system. So we will not discuss much in this slides. We will just go an overview of it. So first thing you need to do in SAP Analytics Cloud is you need to maintain a currency conversion table, where you need to maintain these fields, which is current source currency, target currency, valid from date, exchange rate, and then category and the rate version and type. So you maintain this table. I'll explain you more about this table once we will move to the demo session. Okay, so that is the first part you will do, maintain the exchange rate table. After you maintain the exchange rate table, you need to pick your model where you want to perform the currency translation. Okay, so in case your model is live from the backend system, you won't be able to perform the currency translation in SSA. Okay, so in those cases, you will be doing the currency translation in the backend system as well itself. So if it is a BW system, or if it's a data sphere system, so currency translation you do it in the backend system, and SSC you'll be displaying the results. But if you want to perform the currency translation, you should have an import model in most of the cases. Maybe there might be some workaround, but as a standard practice, you'll be using import model, and import model, these are the prerequisites to perform the currency translation. That means you need at least one date dimension, because without date dimension, how you will decide what is the reference date to perform the currency translation. So there is also an option like you can use a fixed date, but transaction date should be there for the setting. So when you will do the setting, it's a mandatory option when you do the model setting. So that means you need at least one date dimension in your model, and one dimension with transaction currency information. Okay, so one of the dimension you need with the transaction currency information. If you don't have it, that means you have all the transactions happening in one currency. For example, if your country is doing, or a particular data set you have where all the transaction is happening in one currency, then this is not required, because in that case you can link this amount in transaction currency with a fixed with a fixed currency. That means all my transaction is happening in USD, and I want all my report to be translated in AED. So that's just an example. Like the transaction is happening in one currency, and you want the final result in another currency. So both are fixed here. But in dynamic cases, in most of the cases where it's an MNC company, it will do transactions in multiple currencies. So you will have the amount in transaction currency, and then you will have a respective currency in which the transaction has happened, so that you link these two things to decide, like, so there should be linking. So you need to associate your amount in transaction currency, and it is associated. That is why it is showing the dollar sign over here. If you will not associate it, it won't show dollar sign here. So this is a must. So your measure should be associated with the currency. So that's second condition. Sorry, third condition. So third condition is at least one measure should be associated with the currency. So these three conditions you need to meet. That is the first thing. Another prerequisite is in the model setting. So in the model setting, sorry, what you need to do is you need to click on the settings, you need to go to conversion, and there you need to enable this option to allow model to perform the currency conversion. And once you enable this option, it will ask you two mandatory things, that you need to provide the rate table. So that is one catch over here. So for a particular model, you cannot use two different tables. So whatever rate you are going to use, it should be part of the same table. So in SSA, it allows you to create multiple transaction tables, but it is always good if you maintain one table to as a centralized table to keep the data consistent. So you use that table over here, and then you need to select the date dimension for which you will be using as a reference. And this is a optional thing. Like if in case you want a variable, so that user will be able to select the target currency, so user will be able to do. So you can do this one as well. So this is another prerequisite you need to do, that you need to go to the model setting and do all this stuff. And then you can perform the currency translation in three major areas. First is like you can create a conversion measure. So you open the model, go to calculation, create the conversion measure, fill these settings. So nothing to worry about. I will explain all these settings well the demo session. So this is the first area where you will be able to perform the currency translation. And then second option is like at the story level, you will be able to create a uh, currency conversion type of calculation, adding a measure, and then again you need to fill this information to get your currency translation done. And another major area is using the data action. So in the data action also, you can use currency translation step. So you can use currency conversion step, you can name it, and then this is the rules that you need to define for the currency translation, that you can give the from currency to currency measures from from the model, and then you need to select the booking date and the which is the reference date and the category. So all this part I will show you during the demo session. I'll explain you each and everything. So nothing to worry about. So let's move to the most interesting part of the session, which is the demo session. So I will jump to SAP Analytics Cloud now. Okay, so now I am in SAP Analytics Cloud, and first thing you need to do is you need to go to the modeler option. So in the modeler option, you need to go to the third tab, which is conversions, and in the conversion, you see a currency conversion table option. So you can create multiple currency conversion table, but it is always advisable um, to do not create so many conversion table, just to use some common conversion table to keep the data in sync. But from functionality wise, if there is any rare scenario where you need have different teams using different conversions or different things, then you can use the multiple table option. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to the modular conversion and click on this currency conversion table. Okay, and then I'll explain you. So in this table, you have these many columns. So you need to maintain the source currency, the target currency, um, the valid amount, so valid from date, sorry, exchange rate, category, rate version, and rate type. So to explain you with an example, I'll say, let's suppose this is my transaction data. So I have transaction one. So this is my transaction ID. So T underscore one. Okay. And this is my transaction currency. So TC and amount, okay, in TC. So amount in transaction currency. So this is my data TC1, and so I am using USD, and amount is 100. So this transaction, this is my transaction data. Very simple example. And maybe one important factor also we need to add is date. So date of transaction or posting date, you can say, on which the transaction has happened. So this transaction has happened on 1st of February 2026, for example, and this is $100. Okay. Now I want to translate this currency into AED, for example. Okay, so I'll how this currency table will work. So I need to understand that. So because my date is first of, let's suppose instead of first of, this is 5th of February. Okay, so I'll go in this table, and I need to maintain a rate between USD to AED, and you can give any date beyond before this date. because the column says it is valid from. It is not a validity date. That means it is not required that you maintain 5th of February over here is a must. It is not like that. So even if you maintain your rate starting from 1st of January 2026 and you maintain the rate of 675 something like this, and here also one advantage is it can take a very huge number of decimals. The reason is many of the times the currency between which the conversion is happening, one is very strong, one is very weak. So these factors, the decimal factors, play an important role. And also, in case the amount is very huge, then also a minor difference in the decimal create a huge difference in the amount. So that is why you need to decide how many decimals is good for my organization. So you need to keep as much as you can to get more accurate results. And then coming to the actual, as I said, so now in case if this is like you also have a planning data with it, so by default is an actual data. Okay, so this is my version in my model, and by default, let's suppose this is actual data. So I will select actual over here, and then for actual, if I double click, it don't allow me to change the rate version, because for actual this rate version is only applicable for a specific. So I will come to that point. So I selected the actual now version. I don't give anything. Now rate type there are two different rate types. Average is like the average rate for the month. So you know that exchange rate keep on changing every second. Okay, so this average denotes, like, if you keep it as average, that means this 3.6745 is the average rate of February month. If you are maintaining sorry, January month. So if you are maintaining each month, then again you will maintain for February month and then give the average rate and so on. Or in case you select the closing thing, then in closing thing, most of the time we use the last date. That means closing of the month, what was the rate? So maybe by closing of the month, so last date of that month, this was the rate. So it depends on your requirement, business requirement, which rate you are going to use, and you need to indicate this rate type accordingly. So I'll be using the average rate, and for example, for average rate, I'm maintaining once in a month. You can maintain multiple dates, so it is not mandatory like you maintain all the dates. So it only require when you change the date. So if it is the average of the month, one day of the month is fine. That means starting of the day. Why starting of the day? Because in case I use any of the dates, because it's a valid from. That means if I maintain, if I go here and again I maintain another rate for February, for example, if it's a monthly one, I'll change it to 2. Okay, so and let's suppose this rate has changed something like this. This is also actual data. Now, and then every month I'm maintaining this rate. So let's suppose I maintain for March as well. So this is my March rate, and in March the rate has changed to again 50 something. So this is my March rate. Now if I, so in March month my rate has changed to this. Now if I see my data, this transaction has happened on 2nd of February, sorry, 5th of February. That means this is valid from 1st of February, and this is valid from 1st of March. That means from 1st of February till 28th of February, this March is valid. Sorry, this rate is valid. So this rate will be picked by the system. So that means if I convert this, so my target currency is AED, and amount in target currency. So amount in target currency, how you will get? So based on this rate. So I'll copy this rate, paste it over here, and then equal to this into this. So this is my amount that I get. Okay. Now maybe if this is a planning data also, it is associated with it. So then you might also have some transaction in your planning. So maybe not at the transaction level, but still you'll have month or something. So let's suppose you are maintaining a particular date of the month. In your planning, you are always using 01, something like this. And this is your budget. You budgeted something. So this is your budget data, and you budgeted 150. Maybe your actual come as 100. So this is your budget. I delete this. Okay. So this is your budget data. Now if you execute the currency translation on this, it will give you an error. It will fail. The reason is there is no budget rate maintained over here. Okay, so if you use the dynamic feature, so in when you will be selecting what kind of category you want to use for your currency translation, it gives you an option for dynamic. So when you select dynamic, so then if your data is budget, it needs a budget rate. If data is actual, it needs an actual rate. Then only it will work. Or otherwise you also have an option, like instead of going with the dynamic, you select a specific one. Okay, so then it will work for budget, actual, and everything. However, you select that. So here I don't have the budget rate, and if my selection type is like how I doing the translation is using a dynamic one, then it will fail. So what I need to do is I need to maintain the budget rate as well for these three. So I'll go like this. It will give the error because it's a duplicate. So I need to change this to budget, budget, budget. Okay, so I planned this data. Maybe when I was planning, I thought like it will be something like 750 something, or this data will be 855, something like this, and this data something like a different rates, just for an example. So same for this rate. So in this case, what will happen, because it is from 1st of February and this is also 1st of February, so it will pick that rate and your data will be this into this. Okay, so which means your variance here is 50 in normal terms, like you projected or budgeted 150 but actual is 50. That means the variance is $50. In this session I'm not going into more on the planning sense, but just given this because this is very important. And because of the exchange rate difference also we are getting some variance over here, because the exchange rate for the actual used is different and the exchange rate used for budget is different, so it will also create some variance. So in many of the times we also see the variance that is coming because of the exchange rate difference. So how you will get that is in the calculation, like you will get what is the variance. So let me keep this. So this is my exchange rate. Okay, sorry. So this is my exchange rate here and this is my exchange rate here. Okay, so the variance that we are getting because of the exchange rate difference will be this minus this. Okay, so this is my total variance in the rate, and the total variance I'm getting is 50 80, sorry, 50 USD. So that means it's very small amount in this case, but when your amount will be very huge, so this variance is coming because of the exchange rate has changed. So this is how it works. Okay, so I hope this is very clear. Let me create a model parallelly as well, so just to explain, explanation will be very easy. So I'll just open one more session. Let me remove this. So I'll go to modeler again. And in this case, I'll select and create a model, an import model using the data. And I'll load a flat file with very few sample records just to give you the explanation. And I'll go to my currency data, open it and create. Okay. So I will keep this table as is because I will come back to this table to explain you how the things works. But parallelly, we will also create a model. So this is my model. Here, company code is interpreted as a measure, which is not. So I will convert it to dimension. So now we have our model. So in this case, we need to meet the prerequisites for the currency translation. So first thing is like what you can do is you can go over here in the settings and you need to enable the currency translation in the conversion option. So you select this option as to enable, and then you need to select like which currency translation table you want to use in case you have multiple. So in this case, we are creating currency conversion demo, which is already open, but we will update the data later on for this table. So I will use this option, and then you need to select the date which you'll be using for the reference date for these conversions. So in our case, I'm using, so because we have three different dates, but I'll be using posting date for all my translations. And then there is an option like in case you want to provide user an option to select the target currency, then you can use this variable option. So create currency variable and it will create the variable. You can name it as per your need. For example, target currency of the report or something. So you just name it. And in case you want any default value, you give the default value. For example, I select 80. So this is the first prerequisite you need to do and click OK. After this is done, at least you can save the model first before changing the other things. So I'll just rename it as currency conversion model and will save it in my folder. So this is saved. So after this saved, the next thing is like we should have an association for this account type, right? Sorry, the measure. So this measure is a normal integer over here. It is not associated with any currency. So we need to configure that association. So this amount is in transaction currency. So transaction currency over here. But the catch is, in case you want to change, by default this is a generic type, but in case you want to change it to the currency, this option is not available. So as of now, this is what we have. So we can't simply change this currency to the to currency type. So transaction currency dimension to currency type. Only you can use generic, or these are the other option: account, date, version, organization, or timestamp. So, and here if you go, you get an option to select the unit. So you need to select the unit as currency. And then if you don't have any currency column, because here you don't have any currency column, although the name says it's a currency, but it is a generic dimension type. So you don't get, if you go to dimension, you'll not get any drop down, because there is no such dimension available with currency feature. So you make it, you keep it fixed for the time being. And what we will do, we will first configure this one. So what we need to do is, for example, I have a record ID, and each record ID is unique, so that each transaction is related to each record ID, and that record ID belongs to a particular transaction ID or a particular transaction. So what I will do is, I will select that record ID and make it as a dimension table, and add my transaction currency as one of the property. So I'll select transaction currency, and here you will get the currency type option. So select the currency type, click OK. So always select your unique ID. So that is the best possible way. If you don't have any unique dimension over here, in my case, I have the record ID and I have the transaction ID, so I can use either of the two. But in your case, if you don't have any specific, like your data is having a unique record for a combination of dimension, so then what you can do is just simply create a dimension table on top of this transaction currency itself, and just add one more measure. And while doing the data load, you just map the same information both to the transaction currency dimension as well as the um, transaction currency attribute. So that way it will work. So here I just updated it. So my transaction currency is now ready. So now I will go back to my amount in transaction currency, and I will configure the rest. So instead of integer, I will make it as a decimal, and I'll use some decimal places like 3, for example. Click OK. And then I'll scroll down, and now in this time I need to associate a dimension. So now, because we have a currency dimension already available, record ID dot transaction currency, it has taken the respective property as an association. So now it is fine for me. Okay, so this is what you need to maintain. And then next thing is, you also have a company code and the company code currency. So what the similar way, you need to select the company code, and you need to select the company code and create a dimension table, and there select the property as company code currency, and change the type as currency, and click OK. So that you also have the target currency as company code currency in this case. So both our configurations are done. Now it's time to create a currency translation measure. So for that, you need to go to the calculation. And once you'll go to the calculation, here you have the conversion measure option available. So just click on this, click on add currency conversion measure, name it as amount in CC, which is company code currency, amount in company code currency, something like this. So this is the description. Now what options you'll have? You have the source measure. So in case you have multiple measure, you can select which measure you want. So in my case, I only have one. And then if you are creating a report, so because here the name simply says this is amount in company code currency. So if we select amount in target currency, then we will use variable, because target currency is dynamic and user can select any currency. But here it is company code currency, which is a specific currency. So instead of a variable, I will use from dimension. Okay, and it is automatically took, but you need to check whether it is taking the correct company code currency. So company code currency, this is the dimension. And now you have this setting called category. So in case you have planning data which may have different versions of the data, like actual, budget, forecast, and so on, then you need to select this one. By default it is dynamic. So what dynamic means, so if your data is, your transaction data is in actual version, then it will pick the actual rate from the currency table. If your transaction amount record is a budget data, then it will pick the budget rate. So that means dynamic means whatever transaction is there in your table. For example, if you have actuals, then it will go into the transaction currency translation table and pick the actual rates for this USD to AD for that particular date. If your data is in budget, then it will go in the transaction currency table, currency translation table, and it will pick USD to AD for budget. So this is what dynamic means. But in case you don't want dynamic, if you select actuals, that means whatever is your data over here, if it is actual, then also it will pick actual rate. If it is budget, then also it will pick actual rate, because here you have selected actual. So it will always pick the actual rate in this case. So that is why it is by nature, it is by default dynamic. But sometimes in case you want to only use a specific actual rate only to perform all translations, then you can use actual. You want budget to use all the translation, then use budget. But in case your model is very complex, it's a very planning complex planning scenario where you perform multiple translations, like you use actual for the actual data, budget rate for the budget data, planning rate for the planning data, forecast rate for the forecast data, but you also need one more rate which is your custom rate, and you want to see if this is the rate, then what will happen, something like what if analysis. Then you can use this specific rate. So when you use a specific rate, this specific rate will apply to all the versions, whether it is actual, budget, forecast, or something. So there is, so that is why this specific rate is important, so that you will be able, because this is a model level, but at story level you might be creating multiple translations and multiple measures. So one measure, you will, when you use dynamic, then it will do the currency translation for all the data in different versions based on the category from the currency translation table. But at the same time, in that same story, you also need to use one specific rate, and just to check if I use this rate, what will happen. Then at the story level, you can use this specific rate which will apply to all the versions of the data to perform the currency. So that is why a specific rate is used. So this is a rare scenario where instead of using any category rate, you want your own rate to use for all the versions of the data in your model. So that is where this rate is used, and then it will, so only for a specific rate you will get this rate version, because otherwise for actual and everything the version will not come. Okay, so that is how it is. So by default I will keep it as dynamic, and I'll try to save it. So I hope you understand what this category is. So this category, when it is dynamic, so accordingly you need to maintain this category. If your data is having, if your transaction data is having a forecast or a rolling forecast, then the respective rate should be here, or otherwise you need to use a fixed rate. So in case if my model is having multiple versions over here, actual data, budget data, forecast data, everything, but still I want, and I don't maintain those rates, so then only option is you need to use a specific date. Okay, otherwise it will not. Calculation preview not available due to following reason, the currency runs are failed. Okay, so this is failing because there are multiple source and target currency which is not yet maintained in this table. So that is why it is giving an error that this preview is not available. Not an error, but you can't see this preview. First you need to maintain those rates. Okay, so I hope this clarifies like how the rates are maintained. So first thing is, like, I saved this table. After saving this table, I need to either, so either option is there. If you have only limited number of records, you copy paste it, copy paste, control C, control V works over here. Otherwise what you can do, you can load the data as well. So just close this, and here you will get an option to load the file or from the data source, and then select your table. So my table is currency conversion demo table. I'll select my file, so which is currency exchange rate, and just click OK. So sheet 1 is fine, 100% loaded. So after the loading is done, you can just reopen the table to view the data. Okay, so it asks like first you need to map the data. So mapping is correctly picked, but instead of actual it should be actuals here. So it is asking me to correct this. So what I will do is I will create a transformation, replace the value actual with actuals. Hope this will resolve the issue. Okay, now everything is correct. So I will finish the mapping, finish it. Now the data is successfully imported. Let's visualize the data by opening the table. So now you can see the rates are maintained. I have only actual and budget rates, and there are multiple currencies over here. So now we have updated our data in currency conversion table. Now we will go back to the model and we'll see if currency translation is working or not. So we will reset the preview. and we can see it is still showing some missing data. The reason is because here we have selected the rate type. Okay, so make sure that whatever rate type you have selected over here, you also maintain the same rate type when defining your measure here. So when I select my measure over here, you see we have kept our rate type as blank. So if rate type is blank, then there is no blank rate type maintained here, right? So that is why it is giving an error. So either you maintain it as a blank, because this is not a mandatory field, so you can maintain it at a blank, or average or closing. So in my case, if it is average, then I will change and update this one as an average over here, and then I'll go back to my calculations and we'll try to reset the preview, and now it is working. Okay, so that was the issue. So now we are not able to get the data because there are multiple currencies and it shows aggregated data, so it is fine. So now we will try to check how the currency translation is working. So to check that, we will first save our model. So our model is saved. Before proceeding ahead, I will also explain you this date option. So dynamic category option, you are already aware now. So in the date option, this booking date is nothing but the reference that you have selected in the settings. So which is a posting date here. So this is posting date, but there is an option for the drop down whether you want to go by default it is the booking date, which is the posting date, but you can also use an offset like -1 or +1, in case like you are doing some calculation where you want to see the current number with respect to previous year or previous month's exchange rate. So then you can use -1, and then you will get an option as -1 year. That is, if it is this if this is posting date is January 2025, then -1 will be January 2024. -1 quarter, then it will go 3 months back, or -1 month, then it will go 1 month back. So accordingly you can see. Also, like if you want to go +1, so +1 you go, like if it is a January data, then it will take the February rate. If it is February data, then March rate, and so on. So this is how this you can use where, and most of the time it will be used when you are using a last year data or some last year calculation based on the last year rate, or also in planning. When you plan for future dates, sometimes the data is posted for the future month, or maybe the date that you are referencing in the model is the same, but your planning year is 2026, 2027, future one. So in those cases also you can use +1 offset to go one year plus 1 year ahead. Okay, and then we also have an option as a fixed date. So irrespective of whatever is the transaction date, I only want to take the rate from a specific date, then you can go with the fixed date. Okay, so we will keep it as booking date for now, and we'll save the model. After saving the model, so here we are good, so we are able to get the data. So we will just simply see whether how this translation is working and it is working fine or not. So how we can validate that? So we can create a story. So in the story, it is asking for the model variable. So you can keep it as AED. Anyway, in the translation, we have not used this target currency. So that's fine. So I will bring a table over here, and we'll go to the builder option to bring all the fields. So I need basically the posting date, which is one of the important factor for validating the transaction. And then I need the transaction currency, which is under record ID. So I'll take the transaction currency, and I also need the company code currency, which is my target currency. So I think this is enough. And in the measure, I'll select both the measures which we have created. Okay, so now I will just make it a little bit larger, and instead of a single version, I need both the versions. So I'll select my budget version as well and click OK, so that I'll get all my 8 records over here. So what we will do, we will remove the version here, and we will add the version over here. Okay, so now you are able to see the versions as well. So we'll start and do our currency translation if it is working fine or not. Okay, so first of all, we will change this posting date hierarchy to flat format. So our first data is from 5th of January 2025, and we are translating from AUD to EUR for the actuals data, and the data is around 1 million. Okay, so let's check the rate for 5th of January 2025 between AUD to EUR. So AUD, so let me just sort it by sending. So we don't have AUD to EUR, you can see. Okay, so there is no rate. So in that case, it also works if you have EUR to AUD. So we have EUR to AUD for the actuals, and this one is valid from 1st of January till 31st of January, because from February the rate has changed. So the rate is 1.6. Okay, so what you need to do is, it's a kind of a reciprocal thing. So that means you divide this number by 1.6, which is the rate, 1.6, because here we are doing the other way around. Instead of AUD to EUR, the rate is given for EUR to AUD, so which is 1.6. That means AUD to EUR will be 1 divided by 1.6. If you multiply with this number, if I go to Excel and this is your data, so simply what you do, this divided by 1.6, and 625 is the answer, which is correct. 625 euro you are getting. Coming to the next one, you have, let's go to any budget information. So this is the budget data where we are translating from USD to euro, and for 1st of February 2025. So let's go to USD to euro. So we don't have USD to euro, but we have euro to USD, the last two. Okay, so this February rate will be applicable for 1st of February, because, and the data is budget, which is correct. So 1.11. So you need to divide this 1300 K by 1.11. So this is 1300, and we'll go to Excel. This number divided by 1.11, and 1171 is the answer. Okay, so we validated 2 records, but that is fine. When you will do the validation, you can do more, but this is how it is working correctly, as per our expectation. That means wherever it is actual data, it is taking the actual rate, because euro to USD you also have the actual rate here, which is different, which is for February it is 1.08, but it is taking 1.11 because the data is here. This is the budget rate, and our data is budget, not the actual. Sorry, this one, it is budget, not the actual. So that means it is dynamically picking the actual rate. Now if I create one more measure over here, okay, so now we will see how we can do the currency translation at the story level. So you just create a measure, add calculation, and here you need to select currency conversion, and you name it um, amount in target currency. Okay, so here instead of using a company code currency, we will do in the based on the parameter. So our source is same. This is not fixed one. I need a dynamic, or from the variable. If you go the dynamic, it will do the same thing like what we have done at the model level, but instead of doing that, we will do from variable. So whatever input we will put, it will do that currency translation. And then you have the booking date, and this one you can select dynamic. So if for actual it will take actual rate, for budget it will take budget rate. So most probably it will fail because we don't have all combination of translation to a specific currency, but still we'll check. Okay, so we just added. So it has failed because all currency to AED information is not available. So in our variable we have selected AED. If we go here in the variable, you see we have selected AED. Okay, instead we can also select euro, but I doubt if euro is also maintained for all the rates. So that means it is failing. So you need to maintain the missing rates. So then only it will work. For example, if I make all currency to, so these are my source currencies. Okay, so let me first cancel this. And now it is coming. So these are my sources. Okay, so what I will do, I will paste it over here. These are my sources, and I'll make it from 1st of January by default. Okay, so I've copied it, and then in the target, let's suppose we need AED or the rates. So these two are already there, so that is why it is not working. Now if I see the data, first 4 records are actuals, so I'll go with actuals for the first 4 records. I'm just maintaining to show you if any rate is missing, you can also maintain that. So this is budget, this is budget, this is budget, and this is budget as well. Now this AED to AED is not needed, so you can delete this because that doesn't make any sense. Now here you can put any rate. So as of now, because I will not put the real rates, because I'm just showing you once you maintain the rate, it will work fine. So I'm just maintaining it randomly. So just excuse me for maintaining this unnecessary rates, which is not correct. And then I'll keep everything average and I'll save it. Now, because all the rates are maintained and it's all are valid from 1st of January 2025 and all our data is after 1st January 2025, so we will not face any missing rate issue. So we will go back to our story now after saving this, and we will try to bring the measure back which we created. So this was our measure, and now you will not. Okay, so still it is giving some missing rate error. No worries. So we will check that. So yeah, so because we have maintained for AED and here we have selected euro, so we will select AED, click set, and now we are good. So you see it is getting translated in AED based on the rates that we have maintained. So this is how you can do the currency translation at the story level, and at the story level you can create multiple measures for the conversion. But uh, make sure that whatever rate you are maintaining, because this is not a validity date, this is valid from date. So if there is any rate which is maintained from 1st January 2025, then and you have data before 1st January 2025, that means you have 2024 data, then the currency translation will fail, because your validity, that rate validity starts from 1st January 2025. But if you have any data which is like after, because this is valid from, so even if you have February data, March data, or so on, but because you have validity date from maintained as January, that means this rate will be valid unless a new rate is maintained, which means this AED to AUD is valid from January till you can see the next rate maintained in the table is 1st of February. So that means the first line is this rate is 0.43 is valid from 1st of January till 31st of January, because from 2nd of so from 1st of February another rate is maintained. So unless you will not maintain another rate, then this rate will be there for the upcoming months. So once you maintain the rate, so let's suppose for March you didn't maintain any rate, for April you didn't maintain any rate, so then this rate will be applicable for March and April. And then when you maintain the rate in May, then again a new rate will be picked from May onwards data. So this is how the currency translation works. And last thing, to just show you how you can perform the same currency translation using a data action. So you can go to the data action, and this thing I can also cover during the planning session, but I will just show you how at the data action level it works. So you can create a test data action, just name it currency or something. I'll select the model that we have just created, the same model, currency conversion model, and then you select your conversion step. So currency conversion, something like this you can name, and that's fine. And then you need to add the rule. So in the rule you have to select your source. So your source is amount in transaction currency. Now it asks for the target, but because you have only one measure, it will not take the calculated measure. It will only take the measure that is part of your model. So uh, if you need to use data action, then you need to go to the model and add another. I'll just discard this. Add another measure and give it the specific name. So for example, you want to perform a currency conversion just to copy the data or do something and the planning model, then you need to add one new measure over here. Okay, and you need to name it, like for example, amount in GC group currency or something. Okay, so like this, amount in group currency, and you need to associate it with currency. Okay, and if there is no currency type in your model, so I will keep it as fixed as AED, for example. So my group currency is always AED, for example. Rate type I will use average, and I'll save my model. So once you save your model, you go back here and you'll be able to get the new this newly created measure in the target option. So you just select that from here. So because I have added just now, so we need to refresh this to get this, and then the similar options are there, like either you want to go which booking date plus one minus one or something, and then the similar option. So from functionality wise it's the same. I'll just show you once reload it again to show you like from and to measure should come. Okay, so I have just added it again, and I have selected the source amount, which is, now you can see the group currency is also appearing. So this is my source currency, this is my target amount measure, source measure, target measure, then booking date and dynamic, or you want to go with any specific one. Okay, so when you want any custom or a specific translation rate, then how you can maintain it, like you can go to the table and you need to pick the specific rate over here. So irrespective of the version, this rate will be used when you will use it in your uh, conversion configuration. So you'll go to the model, and just you need, how you can maintain the rate is in the specific, you will get an option to um, create the version as well. So you select a specific, and here you give the version, like version, or you can also name your version, which is easier to understand, like you are doing different version, using different version for different purposes, to see like if I use this version, what is the result I'm getting, if I use another rate with a specific version, what is, so that you can decide on a data driven decisions, like which rate is more suitable or something, in case you are doing some what if analysis or prediction. So in that case, you can here you don't get an option to use that specific category. As of now, you see there is no specific category coming over here. And then you have like whether you want to append the data or you need to override the existing data. So then you can use this option. So these are the three areas where we can perform currency conversion. So you can do it at the model level, or you can do it at the story level, or you can also do it using the data action. So, and the prerequisite is like you need to enable the currency conversion in the model setting. You need to select the respective currency table which is going to be used, and the respective date which will be used for the reference. And then your model should have the measures associated with the currencies, and also the currencies information, and also the date field. So those are the prerequisites, and then you will be able to perform the currency conversion at either of these three options based on your requirement. And category wise, like in the data action, you only have the version related categories. However, if you'll do the currency conversion at story or model level, you will get another category called specific, that is used in case you want to perform currency conversion using your own or any custom category rate, which will be helpful in case out of these categories you also come up with any additional rates, and just to see like what happens if I use this rate and what results I'm getting. So it's time to move to the question and answer session. So from the previous session, our first question was which programming language is used for scripting in SAP Analytics Cloud, and the correct answer is JavaScript. Next question was, you are designing a new story. You want the size and position of the widget to adjust dynamically for viewing on different devices and screen sizes. Which page type you must use? So this is very simple. So we will be using a responsive page for this requirement. So in a story, to which of the following is a chart scaling applied? So whenever you configure a chart scaling or a scaling in a story level, so you need to select a specific measure, and then this measure wherever you will use throughout the story, that means all the pages, that scaling will be applied. So that means you need to apply the scaling on a specific measure, and it is applicable for all the pages. So these two are the correct answers. Which of the following is a story guideline? So whenever you are creating a story, so a story guideline says design many stories with few pages. The reason is if you have too many pages, it becomes very clumsy, and it makes the viewer's task a bit tougher to understand the insight. So for each or a specific area of reporting, we will keep it simple with few pages and a story. And in case we, due to some reason, we need to navigate to check a particular thing, then we will have another story and we will link the story, like navigating from one story to another. So the best approach would be design many stories with few pages. When you save a story as a template, what happens? So whenever we save a story as a template, it removes all the data. So it will just keep the template so that you can use the same template and then you can add the new data based on your requirement. So what are some guidelines does SAP recommends you to follow when you create a story? Use grouping, avoid pie chart, no. So have a clear message. So whenever you create a story, your story is, as the name suggests, storytelling. So it should have a clear message, and you should use a corporate branding standards. So whatever is the company's policy, like the color coding or the logos and everything, you use in a way that it suits your corporate branding and it gives a clear message. So these were the 6 questions from the previous session. It's time to move to the question and answer section of today's session, which is currency conversion. So our first question is, in a model in SAP Analytics Cloud, which element must exist before you can enable the currency conversion? Your options are version dimension, measure with currency property, account dimension, or organization hierarchy. Next question is, where are exchange rate maintains for currency conversion in SAP Analytics Cloud? Your options are story setting, data action, currency conversion table, or calendar configuration. Third question is, which rate type are supported in currency conversion feature for SAP Analytics Cloud? So your option is average rate, closing rate, historical rate, or forecast rate. Question number 4, what dimension is commonly used to determine the applicable exchange rate period in SAP Analytics Cloud? Options are version, date, organization, or product. In a live connection to SAP BW, where is currency conversion executed when using SAP Analytics Cloud? So options are SAP modeler layer, SSC story layer, SAP BW backend, or data action script. Question number 6 is, which component are required in currency conversion table in SAP Analytics Cloud? So your options are source currency, target currency, exchange rate, and account type. Choose all that apply. Which type of model support creating currency conversion directly inside the model in SAP Analytics Cloud? Your option is live model from SAP BW, acquired data model, or live model from SAP HANA. And the last question is, what is the role of the target currency in currency conversion in SAP Analytics Cloud? So it defines the base currency of the model, defines the currency to which the value are converted, defines the currency stored in the currency source system, or defines exchange rate type. So that's all for the today's questions section. You can answer the questions and then we will reveal the answer in the next session. So that's all about today's session. To summarize the currency conversion in SAP Analytics Cloud, hope you like the content. If yes, please do subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or queries, you can put in the comment section. I will try to answer those. We'll come up with more exciting videos very soon. Till then, stay tuned. Have a nice day. Bye bye.